Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Jasmine. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my advice for dating as a single Christian woman. The angle I'm filming this at is bad because I'm filming on my iPad. I cannot prop it up properly, so y'all are just going to get the good double chin angle, which, you know, it's not like the worst, but it's not my favorite filming setup. I don't have enough space on my phone right now, so here we are. Anyways, so I made like a TikTok video kind of talking about it, but I wanted to be able to go into just more in depth about what my thoughts are on this. Basically something that I've learned. And this, I feel like I have all of the experience of being single because I've been single my whole life. And you know what? It's like I've seen what's out there on dating apps and I've passed. Like, I really don't think I'm missing out on anything. At the end of the day, I would rather make myself available to no one than make myself available to everyone. And anytime I've gotten on a dating app, I've always just been like very disappointed with the options that are out there. And I've just learned, you know, again, it's he who finds a wife for the reason, not she who finds a husband. I feel like as women, sometimes we feel like you're only going to find, like, you have to do XYZ in order to like find the right person. But I've really just come to realize, like, I cannot make my husband, or it's just like I cannot make a relationship happen with someone. Like, the right timing, I can't force myself to like be in a relationship with someone or go on dates with people I'm really not interested in. And I don't want to have to look. I'm tired. I don't want to be on the dating apps. I don't want to be on all of those things that, you know, people tell you you're supposed to be on if you want to, you know, find a relationship. Truthfully, I feel like I just don't feel like I should have to be on a dating app in order to find someone. But also, it's not my job as a woman to find my husband. It is my husband's job to find me. So what the heck? Sorry, my fan is on, and sometimes I have like a little calendar, and sometimes the like things fly off. I'm not explaining that well. But anyways, I realize it's not my job to find a man. And also, anytime I have tried focusing on like being on dating apps, it drains me, and I'm also truly just not interested in the people I meet on there. And I think the reason being is just I've come to realize, like, because I know I'm very intentional about dating and I don't want to make myself available to every single man that might be interested in me, it's just like dating apps serve no purpose for me at the end of the day. Like, they really don't do anything for me. Like, they just don't work for me because, one, I feel like I cannot decipher out of all of the matches. Like, I feel like the man has to stand out to me for me to be interested in them, and none of the men on the apps that I've seen really stand out to me. And I always feel like I'm trying to think like, oh, is this person my husband? But if they were my husband, I wouldn't have to like question it. I don't know. This is just me getting a little bit sidetracked. Anyways, back to the title of this video. So, I think as a woman who's been single for most of my life, a lot of people look at me and think like, oh, like, I can't believe you've been single. I don't know. I guess for me, like, it's just normal now. Like, I don't even think about it. I don't question it. The thing is, I am intentionally single. I don't care to go on dates with men I'm not interested in. I am perfectly okay and content on my own right now. It doesn't mean I don't want a relationship. I just don't want a relationship just to be in a relationship. I want the relationship that God actually has for me. And so I have very limited energy for, as far as when it comes to like dating. Like, I'm just not gonna sit around, like, I just can't. Like, you can't date everyone. You can't be interested in everyone, right? And I feel like I only have interest in dating my husband. So if they're not my husband, I'm not interested in dating them, which means I'm not interested in dating most men, because most men are not your husband. And I think that's like a mindset you have to learn to have. Like, as a woman, as a Christian woman specifically who wants to be married, you have to be thinking about, like, when it comes to dating, you have to be focused on you have to preserve your energy and time for the man that is actually your husband. Like, you can't be giving your energy to just anyone and everyone. So it doesn't bother me that I've been single for my whole life, essentially, because I know that there's a purpose behind it. I also think me being single this long helps a lot of people who've also been single for a long time feel less alone. And honestly, I feel like if there's anyone who is all right with being single well into their 20s, I think it's me. Like, I'm the one who's like, okay, I can deal with it. And the funny thing is, it looks like it's about to storm, so I'm sorry if my light's like flickering. The funny thing is, I feel like it took me, like, I'm more confident being single now that I'm older than I was when I was younger, because I feel like I'm kind of just like, I understand the purpose of me being single. And the reason being, I feel like, is I know my worth, I know my value, I know my standards, and I'm not willing to settle on any of those things just to say I have a relationship with someone. Like, when you are single with the purpose of marriage, you're not gonna just settle for anyone, because, like, what was the point? Like, I am waiting for, specifically, for one person, which is why I am not bothered by the fact that I've been single this long. Good things come to those who wait. I also feel like it makes your standards a lot higher when you do have that mindset, because, like, you would not wait a long time for something that wasn't worth it, right? Like, would you stand in line for 20 years just to get some Taco Bell? Probably not. But would you stand in line for 20 years if it has to be something it has to be worth your time. If you are going to wait for something, it has to be worth your time. Anyways, here's some points I wanted to say. One, I think there are a lot of men who expect women to be so desperate for a man that they are going to settle for them, and then they get their feelings hurt when they realize that a lot of women, instead of lowering their standards, say, I actually would rather be single. And a lot of men can't comprehend this, because there's just a lot of, in my opinion, and this is not to be rude, a lot of weak, insecure men in today's day and age. And I think this is for a lot of reasons. I think the lack of strong male figures, lack of fathers. I feel like you need a man to teach a man how to be a man. I don't think a woman can teach a man how to be a man. Personally, I just don't think a woman is capable of teaching a man how to be a man because they are not a man. And I feel like not having a lot of strong male role models, a lot of these men's role models are weak, insecure men. The first example that comes to mind is Fresh and Fit. I'm so sorry, but Fresh and Fit have to be the most insecure, weak-minded men I think I've ever come across. They're not masculine. Like they have toxic masculinity ideas as far as what makes them masculine. To me, I feel like it is very unattractive when a man bashes women, doesn't respect women, goes out of their way to put women down. I find that to be probably the most weak-minded and like trait a man can have. Like a man who disrespects women gives me the biggest ick out of anything I can think of. And I will never respect a man who doesn't respect women. I think a lot of these men, especially if they're like a toxic man that quote unquote claims some sort of religion but doesn't actually follow it, they just claim it. Specifically for Christian men out there who have this idea that women are just supposed to submit to them because they are men. First of all, the Bible does not say women submit to men. It says wives submit to their husbands. So a woman does not have to submit to a man who is not her husband, right? And so no, like women are not just supposed to submit to any man just because they're a man. The Bible tells wives specifically to submit to their husband, right? One man, not all men, one man, and that's the man that they choose to marry, right? So anyways, a lot of these men think that their role as a man is just based off of the fact that they're male, instead of actually being a man of God who actually follows, what the Bible says. So you have a lot of weak-minded, insecure men whose ideas of masculinity are centered around the fact that they are male, or centered around very superficial aspects like having a lot of money, having wealth, their looks, their materialistic things. And then when they attract materialistic women, they're shocked. And that's always like the funniest, most ironic thing to me, because I will see men like crying about, or like being like, I'm so scared of finding a gold digger. And it's like, well, maybe if you had more to offer than just your money, maybe if you weren't posting or flexing on your Instagram or social media about all your wealth, you would attract women based off of other qualities. But it seems to me like your only redeeming quality that you find or feel the need to share is how much money you have. And only women who care about money and materialistic things are going to look at that and find you attractive. Women, and I think it's so ironic because I feel like women who have substance want a man who also has substance. Material, like, you attract what you are. So if you are a materialistic person, if you are a superficial person, expect to attract the same back. Like, you attract what you are. If you have good morals and good character, you're going to attract someone who probably also has good morals and good character. So, like, that's why I say, for me personally, I want to focus on bettering myself in all aspects, spiritual, physical, emotional, because I want to be the best version of myself prior to dating. Now, I don't think you're ever going to have to stop learning to grow and work on yourself, I feel like that's a lifetime journey. Like, at the end of the day, nobody is perfect. And if you're waiting to be like this perfect person before you date, you're going to be, you know, single the rest of your life, because you're never going to be perfect. At the end of the day, everyone is flawed in some ways. As a Christian, you have to be able to give grace and forgive people for their faults and look past. I am not perfect by any means. I have a lot of flaws, a lot of issues that I have to work on in my personal life, but that doesn't mean I stop working or stop trying to better myself as a person. But anyways, I think, oh, I wish I remembered her name. There is this woman whose video I watched earlier. She's so smart, beautiful, gorgeous, intelligent woman who basically was saying how, you know, the women that are actually wifey material have no interest in dating men, because men don't actually choose the women that are wifey material. A lot of men are looking for, you know, other things personally. So, oh, I wish I could find that video. I liked it on TikTok, so let me see if I can find it. Because the gist of what she said is that the qualities that a lot of men say they want in a wife is not who they actually choose to date. They choose to date, you know, a lot of women who don't actually meet the standards that they claim. Ooh, it's this woman. So she said the only women that struggle to find a partner are the women that are actually wifey material. And I do think this is true. I feel like there doesn't seem to be a lot of men, and I don't think, and here's what I believe. I don't believe that those type of men don't exist. I just think that, well, one, as a woman, I'm not like hunting for all of the men in the world to be like, oh, which I need to find a good man. Like, I honestly do think it's just like, I'm sitting here waiting until God brings me that man. I'm not hyper focused on it, which is why it's just like, it is what it is. I haven't met someone that I actually find interesting. I shouldn't say it like that. I haven't met someone that I'm genuinely interested in dating, or who I feel like meets the minimum qualities I would want in a spouse. So me being single is really just like, I don't think I've met the person that God has for me. And I also think for me too, it's like there's men that show interest in me, or men that I'm surprised are interested in me as well, because I don't know. I feel like I do not, like, I don't go out like looking for men. Personally, I just don't do that. But I think like I'm more focused on like following the calling that God has for my life. I know there's a lot of things God wants me to do, including like starting my women's ministry, which I started, but we're kind of on a hiatus at the moment until I get it together. Like, there's just so many things that I know God has called me to do, and we're just trusting the plan and purpose that he has for me. Like, I really just don't want to be focused on a relationship right now, because I don't feel like it's even the right time for me. I'm just going to trust God's timing with that. It might not be until my 30s, well into my 30s. I don't know. God's timing, because, you know, my timing, I thought I would be married with kids by 25, and I'm 28 now. So clearly, my timing is not the timing that I'm on. And, I just have to trust God with all of those things. But I do think, like, the more rare you are as a person, it's harder to find. Like, when you have a personality or character or morals, if you are someone who's a unique individual, who's rare, who has a really good character, a really good head on your shoulders, those types of people are a lot harder to find. And there's definitely people who seek out partners that like that, but we live in a society where it's not normal for people to wait till marriage. It's not normal for people to, even want to get married a lot of times. So, like, people who do have that mentality, they're rare and they're a lot harder to find looking at all of the people in the world, right? So something that helped me with being single is God just showed me, like, my value as a person, as a woman, one, does not come from having a lot of male attention, which is why I don't seek male validation. I don't care about getting attention from men, because if they're not my husband, why do I care? But I also think, like, that helps me understand, like, my worth and value as a woman comes from God. Like, God has given me a value as a woman, and that is why I can be confident in myself, even if I don't meet all of the standards that society tells me I have to meet as a woman. Like, no, I'm not a stick skinny. No, I'm not, I don't even know. Like, just watch any other male podcasts out there. And the reason I don't like watching, like, non-Christian podcasts who give dating advice, I've always, like, I watch it sometimes just to, like, it's interesting sometimes, but I also know, like, none of the advice that the people have in that video will ever apply to me, because they're not giving very biblical advice. It's very, like, worldly advice that only applies to someone who is dating in the world, and that is not a relationship I seek to have. Also, I realize you shouldn't take dating advice from a person that you would not be interested in dating. Like, if you're gonna take dating advice, it should be from one, a couple or a woman that is in a place that you aspire to be in. So, if someone's not in a position, okay, let me clarify. If someone doesn't have the qualities that you would want your spouse to have, dating advice that person gives is not going to help you, because you're getting dating advice from the type of man that person is. So I always like listening to couples, like, one, God-centered couples. For example, Jackie Hill Perry and her husband. What's another couple I really like? Well, that's, like, the first one that popped in my head. There's other ones, but I just can't think of them right now. But they're, like, the first one that I thought that came to mind. But, like, you want to take advice from people who either have the type of relationship you would want to have, or are people who share the values that you would want your spouse to have, or you would want in a relationship. So I really watch these podcasts just to, like, I don't know, understand. I'm always trying to understand where people are coming from, but honestly, I could not date in the society that some of you, like, that women date in now. And I always tell my friends, like, I don't know how y'all be going on dates with all of these men. All of these men, like, it really just seemed like dating in today's society is very, like, bizarre. There's just so much, like, unhealed people with a lot of just relationship baggage. And one thing I will say, being single my whole life, I don't have any relationship baggage. I'm not going in to a relationship with ideas or with hurt or with past trauma or with triggers, because I didn't waste my time in relationships with people that I knew were not going to be long term. Um, Hence why the last person I dated, I went on 3 dates with and then was like, you know what? I don't think I'm the right person for you. I don't want to waste your time, and ended it there. And I realized also after that, I'm like, I don't want to go on a date with someone who, like, I don't want to force myself to date someone unless well, no, just in general. I don't want to force myself to date someone or just give my time to just anyone. Like, my energy is precious, my time is precious, and I would rather spend my time and energy into things that are going to uplift, build me up, inspire, motivate, encourage, all of those wonderful things. Like, I just feel like you have to protect your peace. There's the word I was looking for. Protecting your peace is really important as well. But anyways, I feel like I missed part of what I wanted to say. So one of the things was really that a lot of men want women to settle in order to date them instead of step up and become a man worthy of that woman dating. Like, they want to bring women down to their level because they don't actually want to be a man worthy of a woman dating, which is why I made the video about you should never date an insecure man, because a man who is not secure in himself will inevitably bring you down, but they also will become abusive at some point because they're going to project the heck out of their insecurities on you in order to make themselves feel better. They have to bring you down in order to lift themselves up because they deep down know they're not worthy of you, which is also the other part of my video. So, not being approached by men, you shouldn't look at that as a bad thing. Look at it as, one, God protecting you from men who are not worthy of your time. Also, I watched something that really encouraged me a long time ago. Is a woman who talked about how she'd been single so long and was starting to think that, she would never find a husband or never be in a relationship. But God helped her realize, like, he kept her hidden from a lot of men, specifically to protect her from men who he did not send her way. And so being single is honestly also God protecting you from the wrong relationships. That's why I really do encourage, like, if you're a woman who's never been single for a significant amount of time, or you've always had a relationship and it seems like you're struggling in each relationship, like you're not finding the right men, I would encourage you to take a break from dating and learn to be okay being single. Personally, that's the advice I would give. Whether or not someone takes it, up to you. But I think, like, one, it helps you to not be so dependent on having a man to find value. Because sometimes as a woman, you do become dependent on having male attention, and that also makes you more susceptible to abuse, which is another video I can get into. But if you've never learned to be okay being single as a woman, I feel like you don't know your full value as a woman on your own. Like, you don't need a man to be whole. You don't need a man to be valuable or to be worthy. And I do think being single helps you realize that. And when you know that, you can also date with a lot more confidence because you're not dating out of dependency or a need or because you feel like you're lacking something. You're dating with a complete knowledge of your value as a person so that you can find someone who values you fully and you don't have like a codependent relationship. Now, I'm not saying like being dependent on your husband or having like any type of dependency on your husband is wrong, because it's also very true that as a woman, there are going to be things that expectations you have of your partner to provide for you that you can't provide for yourself. So I'm not saying it in like all areas. I'm just saying, like, if you are someone who does find that you do not feel, or you have your self-esteem is dependent on you having a man in your life, I would say that is specifically what I'm talking about. Like, you need to know your worth and your value as a woman, with or without a man. So that's just my advice for people who have a dependency on having a relationship in order to feel good about themselves. What else was I gonna say? So not being approached does not mean that you are not attractive or valuable or whatever. A lot of times it is God protecting you. I realized when I used to go out when I was really young, I honestly was putting myself in very risky situations. A lot of men are actually predators. Especially when you're going out late at night, like clubs and bars and stuff like that do not have a lot of men with great intentions in those types of spaces. And so I had my fair share of incidents going out as a young woman that kind of, I learned from them. Like, I just had to learn, there's a lot of men who are predators at the end of the day, and you do not want to be on a predator's radar. As a woman, you don't want to become someone's prey or someone's victim. So there's that too. That's one of the reasons I don't like being approached by men as well, because there's also a lot of men who are just predators. Lastly, there is another point I was gonna make. So back to the video of her saying, like, the women who are having the hardest time dating right now are the women who are actually wife material. I agree with that to a certain extent, because I do think it's easier to date if you don't have, I don't want this to come off the wrong way. When you don't have standards, if you don't have high standards, it's a lot easier to date, right? Like, the higher your standards are, there's going to be less people who probably can potentially meet you. Like, when you have very high standards, you are limiting the number of people that you can date. Like, that is actually the purpose of a standard. Like, having your standards are to weed out people who you would not consider a viable partner for you, right? So, like, the purpose of having a standard is so, like, you weed out people who are not good for you, people that you wouldn't consider dating, right? So the higher your standards, the more things that you put on your list of, I need a man who is X, Y, blah, 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 the more you are limiting the amount of people you will date, right? So if you have very low standards, it is easier to date because you're not weeding out a lot of men. So I'm not saying this to be, like, rude. I'm just saying it, like, logically speaking, not having a lot of standards, it's easier to date around. If you're just dating and looking for a man to sleep around with, you are going to probably have the easiest time dating, because it's really easy to find men who just want to sleep with you, right? But when you are dating with the purpose of marriage, that's a standard that a lot of men don't meet. There's a lot of men who aren't interested in getting married or aren't actually looking for that, right? So basically, the more standards you have when it comes to dating, the less options you have and the smaller population you have to work with. So, the standards you set for yourself, and you set your standards of who you will date. Like, that is no one, like, no one can set your standards for you. You set those. Whatever your standards are when it comes to dating is who you are going to deem as worthy of your time, worthy of your presence, worthy of your energy. And I strongly encourage women to have standards of a man respecting them, cherishing them, valuing them, all of those things. I have very high standards. Obviously, this is why I don't date nobody. A lot of men don't meet my standards, and I'm okay with that because I set my standards a certain way because I wanted to limit who I would and would not date. And I'm very limited in who I will give my energy, who I will give my time to, and I am proud of that. I do not see that as a negative thing. I see it as me standing on business, me knowing my value, me knowing my worth, me knowing, what I am worthy of, what I will tolerate and won't tolerate. And I respect myself too much to lower my standards. I will never lower my standards to make me more available to men. Like, at this point, my standards are only getting higher and higher at this point. The longer I wait, the higher my standards get. So anyways, you set your standards on who you will date. Standards exist to limit who you will give your energy to, who you will allow to access you, right? And unfortunately, if you don't have very high standards, you are making yourself available to a lot of people, right? And I would not say that's a good thing. I would say you should have standards. Like, you wouldn't want to date just anyone and everyone, right? Like, you should set standards. You should want to have standards that limit certain people from having access to you. So, in order to do that, though, you have to know your boundaries, know what you like, know what you don't like, know your worth, know your value, etc. XYZ. So, anyways, all that to say, I've learned from being single that, honestly, I have been protecting my peace by being single. A lot of these men are not that great, honestly, and I peeped that from a very young age. And because I understood that, I don't like wasting my time. I'm not going to waste other people's time. I also just, I said, like, I don't want to be someone that's available to anyone and just everyone. So, there's a shirt I need to purchase. It says, "If you're not my husband, like, leave me alone." That's honestly the energy I've been on. Probably since I was 20 plus 22. In my 20s, I kind of really just solidified. Like, if you're not my husband, leave me alone. Why are you wasting my time? Why are you talking to me? And truly, the only man that I feel like will hold value in my life is my husband. And obviously, like, like, your parents and grandparents and, like, family members that you love and respect, of course. But you know what? One of my standards that I feel like should be the simplest is actually the hardest to find, and that is men that respect women. Like, you would think, I don't know why, I clock disrespect in men so easily because I respect myself and because I respect women, because I am a woman. But I'm just like, there's a lot of men who don't respect women. And there's also a lot of men who don't respect women who try to talk to me. And I'm like, you're barking up the wrong tree. I think it's so I just find a lot of things very disrespectful. personally, but the things that I find disrespectful, some people don't. So I just know I have a lot of respect for myself, so I expect other people to. And if other people don't respect, like, the more you respect yourself, the less you tolerate disrespect from other people. So the higher your level of self-respect, the less disrespect you will tolerate from these men. And I have a great deal of respect for myself, and that's why I can't tolerate a lot of men, especially men on podcasts, especially men like Fresh and Fit, men like, I don't know, there's just a lot of men that I don't respect. There's a lot of men that I don't respect because they don't respect women in general. And like I said, that is probably gives me the biggest ick. If there's one thing I had to pick, like, one of my biggest turnoffs, pet peeves in a man is a man who disrespects women. But also, just like in general, men who are just, I don't know. There's just, like I said, there's really not a lot of people that there's not, like, I can't even tell you, like, an example of a man that I would consider dating in this day and age. Because if I knew an example, I would probably not be, or I shouldn't say not be single, but I would probably be able to see myself with someone. And the reason I feel like it's hard for me to is because I don't feel like I've really seen an example of the type of man. I've never met someone that embodied what I want in a partner. Not that there's not, like, a lot of great guys out there, because I truly believe there are. I just don't think I've experienced or seen that a lot in my personal life. Now, I just also want to say this too. I don't have a lot of guy friends, and I feel like that's just, like, I don't try to be friends with men. I've always been a girl's girl. I've never been a girl that had a lot of male friends or guy friends, and I've personally never really wanted to. I always have told women, I'm like, if you're friends with a guy, someone's going to end up liking you, yada, yada, yada. And it's always true. It's like, guys don't try to be friends with girls that they're not interested in dating. And which is why I'm not trying to be friends with guys, because I know, and I've had I just know for a fact, anytime you are friends with a guy, the guy will end up liking you. The guy almost always ends up liking the girl every single time. And if I'm friends with you, I don't want you to like me like that, right? But I've never sought out friendships with men for that reason. But also, just, why do I need guy friends? What do I need them for? I have male acquaintances. I'm not saying I hate men. I just don't go out of my way to try to be friends with men, because I've just no need for that. Honestly, point blank, period. I've no need for that. Anyways, I think that's all I have to say. I've been yapping for 43 minutes at this point. But hopefully there were some tidbits of advice in here that help you if you are someone who's struggling being single as a Christian. I personally think, like, there's a lot of us out there because there's really just not enough worthy men out there. I personally think, like, there's a lot of trash men out there. The ones that are good and decent, I don't know where they are. And I honestly feel like the decent men probably feel the same way. They're like, where are all, like, the good quality women? And I honestly can't tell you. They're probably in church. They're probably keeping to themselves. They probably don't go out often. What else? They're probably reading their Bible. They're probably praying. They're probably volunteering. Um, but yeah. I also think, like, you'll meet the right person when the timing's right. Like, you can't force meeting the right person, which is why I'm just like, you can't force things to happen. You just have to trust God's timing. And like I said, focus on the plan, purpose God has from on your life, and everything will fall into place in the way it's meant to. For me, I'm still a work in progress in a lot of ways. I'm still on my journey to just becoming the best person, the best woman of God that I can be. So all I can do is just keep pushing forward, following the path that God has for me, and hope that I feel like I'm not even gonna say I hope for a husband. I think I just hope for whatever God has for me, and whether or not it's marriage or not, I want to be content. Because I do also just have to accept that there might not be someone out there for me, and I have to be able to live with that. I don't think God has called me to be single for the rest of my life. I just think, like, the type of person that I am is someone who just can't settle for just anyone. Like, you have to be someone special, unique. There is something, and I don't want to say because it's kind of a secret. There is something that I do feel like God has showed me about my future husband, and it's information that only I need to know, and I will not tell anyone else what it is. But there is a certain thing that I know my husband will do, which is why, and it's something that a lot of men don't do. So the information that I do know is kind of the reason I know a lot of men that have tried to talk to me are not my husband, or are not the man that God has for me. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Me being a yapper, I like to talk sometimes. But again, being single is not the worst thing in the world. I enjoy being single while I am, because honestly, I get to be selfish. I know that sounds kind of bad, but when you are single and don't have kids, you can be a lot more selfish than when you have a husband and kids and other people to think about. Not saying that you shouldn't think about other people even if you're single, but obviously, like, there's things that I can do where I don't have to consider other people. Like, if I want to go to a store and go shopping, I don't got to answer to nobody. Well, I got to answer to God, but I don't have to really, like, consider other people. And that's something my mom tells me a lot. She's like, you're so selfish. And I'm like, it's not that I'm selfish, it's that I am single. I'm not married. I don't have children. Like, I check on my grandma. I pray for my family, my friends. I work with kids. I think about the kids I work with all the time, their well-being. Like, I don't know. I feel like I have a very nurturing personality too, which is something that I think that's the reason a lot of times people do feel comfortable sharing some things with me, because I do feel like I have a nurturing personality where people feel welcome to share things with me, because I'm never trying to, like, put people around me down. Anyways, I'm getting off track. That's all I have to say, guys. Basically, just, if you are single as a Christian, you have to just trust and believe that the right person will find you when the timing is right. Focus on what God has for you. First of all, make sure you understand that your worth and value as a woman comes from God, not the things that the world tells you makes you valuable. Like, I would never feel good about myself if I measured myself to the standard that the world wants me to have. Like, if I'm just supposed to be like, oh, I have to just look a certain way all the time, or I have to be a certain size, or my hair has to look like this, or I have to dress a certain way. Like, I feel like I stopped holding myself to the standards that the world has, and that helped me be more confident. Also, just understanding the woman that God has called me to be, or the woman that God created me to be, also helped me learn to be more confident in myself and know my value and my worth, because I know how God sees me, which is more valuable than anything you'll ever find in a husband anyways. Like, God values me. What else do I need, right? But yeah, do not feel discouraged because you've been single for so long. It is God's protection. There's a lot of trash men out there that you don't want to date anyways. There's a lot of men who are just not worthy of you, and you don't want to date those men anyways. So keep waiting, keep trusting God's timing. The right person will come when you least expect it. And yeah, that's all I have for now. Bye, guys.